In the interest of time, all of our speakers' bios have been posted on the conference website, so I'm not going to read them here. So without further delay, I'm going to kick off my presentation, which is entitled Horizon Utilities Smart Growth Inspired Customer Connection Policy. Okay, so we launched this policy earlier this year, and it's meant to essentially promote economic development in the communities we serve. And I'll get more into the detail of who we are and who we serve throughout this brief presentation. We are owned by the cities of Hamilton and St. Catharines. We're one of the largest electricity companies in Ontario, the 5th largest, and proud of the communities we serve. So our sustainable development path, which led us to this Smart Growth Inspired Connection policy, has given us, we've received many accolades for it. We're quite proud of our achievements, particularly most recently our Quest Community Energy Builder Award. And one of the items we're currently working on is an energy mapping project, which seeks to identify consumption across our territory mapped with property attribute data. So what are the benefits for a utility, my company, for intensification? There are many social and economic benefits. It's good for the community, but it's also good for us. We generate more revenue, decrease the density, and lower our costs. So in Hamilton already, there are a lot of success stories. One is Canada's largest LEED Platinum residential building. It's West Village Suites. It's near McMaster, and it's a great example of infill development. The second, another good example is in St. Catharines, our other community. This is Heritage Point. It's a residential development in the heart of the city, 15 acres on a former manufacturing site that's contributing a lot to the urban density of the city. So what can we do to make infill development more attractive? We rethink our connection policy and we leverage all of our data, put it into a database, and work with our economic development departments to make it happen and to promote infill development. So rethinking the connection policy is the key part here. So we're following smart growth principles by doing it. We're promoting municipal programs. We're increasing our revenue. And our success will be determined if we find customers for existing vacant buildings. So what we're doing is we're removing the enhancement costs from our connection costs, which a customer pays up front to locate in a facility. We're the first utility in Canada to do this. The savings potential is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is our example. You can see it on the website, but essentially, previously a customer would have paid $225,000 to connect in a vacant building. Now they pay nothing except for a $105,000 deposit, which is 100% refundable. And this is common across anyone who locates in a repurposed building. The second thing we're doing is creating a searchable infill database. So it provides all the information up front to the customer so they can determine best where to locate and not do a lot of work and not have connection capacity at the end. So, for example, they want to locate in a business park. We've matched up exactly where the capacity is for them to locate. So they don't do all this due diligence and essentially have nothing to show for it because there's no capacity for them to actually connect for their business. We include the utility assets in that database. So everything that's at the street, and it's helpful for customers to know what they're dealing with in terms of available capacity. We also include the customer equipment. So anything left behind by the previous owner of the factory or facility. And this could be in the millions of dollars in terms of value. So it's critical for the customer to know exactly what's in what they're going into before. So we also take our CDM group, which has secured the largest retrofit Save on Energy grants every year since the program's inception in 2008, and we bring them into the facilities as well to further decrease the cost for anyone who locates in a repurposed facility. And we're connected to the municipal repurposing programs in Hamilton and St. Catharines. Both cities are leaders, and we're proud to be working with our economic development departments to make this happen and to promote infill development in our communities. We're doing this as well while keeping our costs down. We're one of the lowest cost electricity companies in Ontario. We need much lower cost per customer and less revenue per customer than many other utilities out there. And we're proud of the fact that we're able to offer these incentives while keeping our costs low and also giving back to our communities in dividends. Our 3-year average return on equity to our shareholders, Hamilton and St. Catharines, is above the provincial average. So our ability to keep our costs low and also return to our shareholders while offering these incentives is pretty critical. We're proud of the fact that we're the first utility to be designated a sustainable electricity company by the Canadian Electricity Association. You can see more about that on our website. And we're the first utility in Canada with this smart growth strategy. And I encourage you to go to our website and also view the presentation. If any questions, I'll be pleased to answer them. Thank you. So our next speaker is Paul Krutko. He's the President and Chief Executive Officer of Ann Arbor Spark, and his presentation is Ann Arbor Spark's Virtual Business Advisor.
So how can we use 21st century tools to meet the business needs in our community, particularly the vast number of small businesses that we don't have the resources to serve? So we all know we have a real pain point. I'm using Ontario data here from Statistics Canada. There's 381,000 existing small businesses in Ontario, and you can see that 55% of them have between 1 and 4 employees. Now, I got some new data this morning. You have 750 members, but the math is 500 for every small business for every EDCO member. And most of you aren't focused on them. Most of you are focused on the 8,000 businesses over 100 employees and attracting new ones. But what if 1/2 of Ontario's small businesses improved enough to hire 1 additional employee? That would cause the unemployment rate to drop from 7.3% to 5.2%. 1 job per small business. But your current system works just for the lucky few. There's a large amount of need. They're 24/7 operators, so they can't leave their shop to come to you between 8 and 5. They don't know what they don't know, and you guys all know what they don't know can kill them. So lots of resources, but they're very fragmented, and the entrepreneurs and SMEs can't find the resources. So what are we proposing? Well, we're proposing using a 24/7 virtual cloud-based advising system to diagnose small business needs and send them immediately to the help that they need. It starts with the right questions. Most small businesses don't even know the right questions to ask about their own business. They don't have the time to sift through all the information that's there, and they don't have the money to pay for the professional services that comes at a pretty high price per hour. So what we're trying to do is bridge between a variety of business types and take their needs and attach them to the resources through a virtual advisor before they get to professional advising. It's really a filtering technique. This is our web portal that's already up and running. I can send you the address. You can see we have 3 modules. We start with, do you want to be an entrepreneur? Testing your readiness if you're already on the path, and then testing your fitness if you've been in an existing business for a while. Very simple system, answering basic questions, hints, takes between 12 and 15 minutes to do. This is an example of the page. Second page. No, that's the second page. We have a clock at the top so they can quickly see that they're getting through the system. But what it results in is immediate feedback. As soon as they complete this portal entry, they get a report directly back by email instantaneously on what they need to do to improve their business. The business report looks something like this. The chart really reflects a comparison to all businesses in those categories. So if they're below the red line, lots of work to do. Between the red line and the green line, they need to do some things. And if they're above the green line, they're doing pretty well. You guys have seen this kind of chart before. This is overlaying against all the factors against a perfect business. They can visually see where they need to improve. But more than that, we then, for everything that was red, we give them direct links, embedded links to answer and solve the particular questions and problems that their assessment raised. So this is an example. Those are all links that they can click on. For you as the EDO, the system aggregates the problems that the businesses are having across your community, helps you design specifically targeted programs. And in fact, because you have their email addresses, if people are having specific marketing problems, you can email directly to them. What does it do for you? It extends your reach, it provides value, it's targeted, and it reaches businesses that you just don't have the resources to reach. For the business, it's low, no-cost business advisory. It helps them on their schedule identify their capabilities, their weaknesses, their needs, helps them benchmark, and it actually gives them a specific report against which they can work on and references to solve their problems. So that's the Ann Arbor Virtual Business Advisor. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Paul. Our next speaker is Jim Robeson. He's the co-founder of Pinpoint. He's going to be talking about redefining business attraction, expansion, and retention.
Business attraction, retention, and expansion. It's these topics that I've been discussing with businesses to understand how and what process they use to identify a community, the challenges in which they find with each process, and what the ideal solution would be for them. Throughout the next few minutes, I want to discuss three things. The first one is the lessons I've learned throughout these conversations with businesses, what the Pinpoint platform is, and ideally how we want to help economic developers. The first lesson is businesses place a tremendous amount of significance or importance on up-to-date and accessible information such as demographics, traffic, and business listings. But it's all in one location is what they're looking for. Secondly, it's that they are looking for granular data such as zoning, new property developments, or ongoing construction. But it's seeing this data visually. Now, having spent a very short period of time in economic development throughout my university career, but also speaking with you throughout the past 12 months, or some of you, and again today, it's apparent that economic developers do not have the time or money to continuously update their business attraction, retention, and expansion efforts. For many of you, you are having to manage multiple files on a daily basis, and if a site selector or opportunity is presented to you, it's difficult to have all the data at your fingertips. Pinpoint solves this problem. We are building an online platform that helps businesses identify the right location for their needs. With Pinpoint, businesses can quickly, easily, and visually identify every single Canadian municipality's demographics, every single business in your municipality, the available commercial real estate, and what the traffic counts are on a daily basis. You can look at this from a neighborhood perspective, a county perspective, or even as large as a province. As soon as the user signs up, they can instantly identify, based on their target market's criteria, what the ideal location would be. Now, from that, you can zoom in and see what locations around it are also beneficial. You can overlay this with available commercial real estate properties, see what the cost per square foot is, who their broker is, or whether it's for sale or lease. Now, from here, you can also instantly conduct a competitive and market share analysis. You can search based on category, such as coffee or housekeeping. You can even do it by business specifically. As you see on the map here, it's Starbucks and Tim Hortons. We have almost every single location in Canada. From here, if you're expanding or opening a new business, you can also see how would your market share be impacted if you were to open, or how would you impact your competitors or another location that you currently have if you're a franchise. All of this is great, but what we've learned is that businesses also want to see this data from a graph perspective. We provided 2005 perspective, 2013, and now we're also predicting for 2015 what this data will look like. So location, in my opinion, plays an enormous role in business decision making. I believe that in the future, location will play an even greater role in every single decision that a business owner will make. No longer will businesses have to search Google and identify specific data from website to website, or for some of them, count cars on almost a daily basis to get the insight. We will centralize everything. If we then look at the user's needs and what we have found out, it's that businesses want a user-intuitive online platform that is affordable, offers a variety of data sets, and is customizable to their business. For some of you, or maybe many, you're still using Facebook and Twitter, different social media outlets. What we're finding is that they're not working anymore. Organizations are looking for more data-driven insight. So what does that mean? That means moving forward, business attraction, retention, and expansion, in my opinion, is going to be data-driven. You're going to have more businesses looking for specific data sets that you have, and you ultimately have a gold mine. Business attraction, retention, and expansion is important to me, both from being in the economic development field, but also helping economic developers make more effective decisions and provide businesses with most reliable information. And at this point in time, we're hoping to connect with some of you in hopes of bringing your data to life in terms of the data sets we've mentioned today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. We're pleased to have Gemma Mendez-Smith from Workforce Planning Ontario to talk to us about working relationships, the crucial connection between workforce planning, social, and economic development.
Thank you, Brian. You are about to see some big ideas that are happening across the province in relation to economic development and workforce development. It is my belief that synergies occur when we collaborate towards one goal, when we have the same why. But I also believe that innovation happens when we collaborate outside of our usual suspects. And over the past few years, we as workforce development boards have worked towards creating those innovations. We have started working more and more with our economic development partners, so we are able to make the connection that needs to be made between workforce development and economic development. As we continue to break down these silos and shift our paradigms, wonderful partnerships ensue. And here you'll see some slides that kind of demonstrate some of the partnerships that are happening across the province. There are local boards in every region of the province, east, west, north, and central. They didn't keep it east, west, north, and south. We see we're using labor market information that drives the industries in our communities. But what we need to know is what's happening. What's the churn? What's happening within that workforce that creates the economic vibrancy that we need to see and grow? There we have made initiatives between economic development professionals and workforce development boards, and 4 themes seems to strike me. And one is connecting the supply and demand as identified by our employers. We speak to our employers, we hear what they want, we respond through workforce development. We help create opportunities for labor market engagement. We look at where we might be able to be the connectors in the unusual places. Retention, expansion, and attraction, both businesses and the labor force. We've just heard businesses make decisions based on the supplies that they have. We see we need to create some flexibility around education. And here's one of these projects happening here. We need to think about how we're going to quickly and very effectively ready our workforce for the changes that are happening in our economy. And as we continue to identify those needs by our employers through the workforce development side of the work that we do, then we're able to give that information to the supply side. We've been in conversations with our universities and our colleges to talk about how they can reflect those quick changes that we need in our labor market to ready our workforce to provide the services that our employers need. A couple of the things as we continue to work towards that synergy that happens now that we've got the connection with our economic development partners, we looked at the labor market attraction strategy and that whole provincial perspective yesterday. It's an amazing idea when we have that big picture and all of us as either municipalities or counties or cities, urban, suburban, rural, working together towards one goal. We don't always have the same perspective. Rural, where I'm from, Bruce Grey here in Perth counties, is very different to what would happen in Mississauga and Toronto. But what is the same is that we all want success. We all need to build the success within our communities the way that they work in our communities. And that can happen through the synergies of workforce development and economic development. We're very proud to be here today and to continue to work towards those things that are happening. A workforce attraction strategy shouldn't only reflect what happens when someone, let's say we're talking about new immigrants, they usually tend to land in Toronto. How about coming up to Bruce Peninsula? Wouldn't that be a stretch? Spend a winter, see what it's like. But you know what? There are so many opportunities. Businesses, we have small businesses we need to support. We have large businesses we need to support in our urban and suburban areas. And as we continue to work together, we will be able to find those synergies. Here's an example. Workforce Development Board of Waterloo, Wellington, Dufferin. They had a virtual job fair. That is just so amazing. Now, you don't have to invest the time to have staff at an event. You can have a virtual event. And they was quite successful. For far less than you would hold a regular career fair, you have people attending. Over 1,000 people came back and forth into that virtual career fair. It ran for a whole week. You could not run such an event for $5,000 or less in a real setting. So as we continue to work towards the same goals of a vibrant, strong economy in Ontario, let's continue to look at all the strategies and all the facets that make that happen.
Thanks, Gemma. Next up is Bill Dennis. He's the president of Cultural and Generational Training with Developing Successful Relationships with Different Cultures.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. My role in life and my company's role in life is to make people as successful as possible with people from different cultures, and to make your community as successful as possible with different cultures. There is a major, as you know, demographic shift taking place. There's over 200 different cultures now in Ontario, and yet most of us were only prepared when we were growing up to work with one culture, our native culture, if you will. However, that does not work very well, since only 10 out of the 190 countries of the world have cultures similar to Canada. So virtually 95% of all the countries have different cultures than we have, and when you come from a different culture, you see things very differently. You have a cultural lens. Through your cultural lens, you see how you perceive things, you evaluate and respond to things, but when you're dealing with people from different cultures, if you show that you understand their culture, their way of doing things, you respect their etiquette issues, etc., then they will more than reciprocate in terms of appreciation. And that's a great way to start to attract them to your community, because we have this rich mosaic of immigrants coming to Canada, many of which, by the way, are wealthy people. Starting point, frankly, the starting point is understanding yourself. So when you do automatic things like try to shake their hand, you may be surprised that you were being rude. But you didn't know that. And there's all kinds of things that you were not prepared to understand. And that's the reason I've done cultural profiles of 69 countries of the world. For another example would be relationships. Typically, Canadians will spend 3 to 5 minutes establishing a relationship with someone, which is seen as exactly the appropriate thing to do in Canada. However, once we've established our 3 to 5 minute hellos, we then want to get down to business. That's exactly the last thing you should be doing with many countries, people from many countries of the world. That's the Canadian way, absolutely contrary to their way. They would interpret that as you being overly aggressive. I don't know if you know that. However, because in their world, there is no business typically done by people unless they have a very long-term, solid relationship. So by you automatically doing what you know in our native Canadian culture, you inadvertently make a mistake dealing with these people. Culture, as you may or may not know, has 4 main categories, which have subdivisions. But every culture in the world has 9 dimensions. Do you know there's 3 time cultures? So if you try to, as a Canadian, do it in your term, in terms of getting down to business, for example, you could be very seen as being rather rude by another culture, and you're still the last intention. Studies show that the average person who isn't culturally trained makes 3 cultural mistakes in the first minute of meeting someone from a different culture. So I'm here, if I'm invited, to help your community and you become extremely successful with dealing with different cultures. Typically, people I work with and companies I work with, their sales go up 30 to 50%. There's no reason your community couldn't experience the same type of success. Our relationship is one of an individualism, whereas the previous slide would indicate most cultures of the world think in terms of collectivism. The group is important, not the individual. But when we think in terms of such things as getting ahead and being a winner, communications, biggest area of mistakes, cultural mistakes, how you say things. 2 types of communication cultures out there. Context means not what's said, but rather the context in which it's said. Kind of a different approach, whereas in Canada you have content, which is people who have to speak clearly. Time frame, as you see on the screen, if you're dealing with people from South America, et cetera, they have flexible time cultures. If you would try to deal with them in terms of a rushed approach, you could actually totally turn them off. So time to them is very important, to us may be very important in terms of time management. Typically we'll say, okay, we'll give you 15 minutes or half an hour, whereas in India, that's nothing. All kinds of things that can be done to make you much more successful with different cultures and your community. In terms of the other dimension of cultures is power structure. Hierarchical, most of the countries of the world are hierarchical, and that means that they're a very strong power status structure, and that's what they think is right. There's no right or wrong, just that these cultures are different. But in this particular culture, Russia, for example, obviously, when you're dealing with a Russian, they're looking for a very structured approach to things. Believe me, Mr. Putin is not a fun guy at times. When you take a look at what you have in Canada, of course, is a much more egalitarian type of structure where the boss is much more friendly towards their employees in the sense of working together as a team and those types of things. I can't even come close to covering what needs to be shared with you today, but I can promise you that if I have the opportunity of meeting with you, that I will do my utmost to make you as successful as possible. And again, I really appreciate being here. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And last up is Rebecca Mustard. She's an Economic Development Officer with Durham Region. She's here to tell us about Uxbridge's big idea to tackle business attraction, changing the paradigm.
Well, good afternoon, the last one between you and a break. So, this project that we're talking about right now is actually ongoing in Uxbridge. So it's a business plan competition where one lucky winner is going to win $12,000 towards their first year's lease in a space in Uxbridge. It's a retail space. So to give you a bit of context, Uxbridge is in the GTA. It is a beautiful town of 20,000 people. Known as the trail capital of Canada, we have over 220 kilometres of trails going through the town. The BIA in Uxbridge is really interesting in its structure. It takes in, like many BIAs do, the historic downtown, but it also takes in the large format retail commercial corridor. So it has interesting characteristics, and throughout it all are vacant storefronts. We have big issues in Uxbridge with retail leakage because we are quite a bedroom community. So what we've tried to do with Win This Space is borrow some ideas, and we borrowed them from the city of Spartanburg, and Patty Buck, who's the EDO down there, was really generous in sharing a project that she had started called the Main Street Challenge, and we've adapted it to the Uxbridge setting. So 3 groups have come together to do this. Our Uxbridge BIA, which is a phenomenally progressive organisation, our Business Advisory Centre Durham, which is our small business organisation, and the region, and through the region, the township as well. The structure of how we run this event and putting the bones in place is really important, and so we need it to be critically business savvy, but also address the community needs. So we put our judging panel together. It includes people from the BIA, from the region, from the township, and some contacts that are in the angel investor field. So we're trying to, at the end of this, come up with a business and help our businesses be really successful. Our business community has come together to make this possible. We have in vacant storefronts these beautiful lime green storefront windows that the time to put the vinyl up and the design is now on 13 storefronts throughout our BIA, so in the historic downtown area, as well as the large format retail areas, and all these landlords have stepped on board with the project. Also coming on board with the project are all of these different businesses from Uxbridge, and they are donating in-kind services. Some of them are doing marketing, some of them are window cleaners and said, we will wash the windows of the winner for a whole year for free to help them get off the ground. And the whole point is our business community has come to us and said, we want to help, and this is what I can offer the business, this new business, our winner, for the next year. So it's a really exciting project. So we went out to the business, out to the community of Uxbridge in the fall of last year and said, you could win $12,000 towards your first year's rent, plus in-kind services, plus business training workshops to get you ready. Our judging panel received 55 submissions, which we've taken down to the top 30, and we're working with the top 30 at the moment that are going undergoing 3 business plan training sessions through our Business Advisory Centre. They've adapted their programming to fit our needs. Currently, we started with 30 ideas. We're down to 18 ideas as people figure out that starting a business is actually kind of difficult and takes a lot of resources. And in a couple of weeks, they will be submitting a business model canvas to our judges to come up with our final winner. So we're at a really exciting point in time. We've had a great response to this project in Uxbridge, in our community of 20,000 people, and social media was a really important way of communicating the word out. It's also important for us in how we found out about the project as well. This is the one project where our 3 newspapers in Uxbridge have all had something absolutely positive to say and have helped get this project off the ground through very, very little paid advertising. So this is where we are. 55 business ideas came in when our competition was open for 55 days. Got a top 30, we're narrowing it down to a top 5, and in March we will come up with our winner at a grand finale celebration. So we learned a few things from this project and we want to leave them with you. The right place and the right time, ideas and opportunities are colliding. Dream big. This was a huge dream project for us and it's working out absolutely amazingly. And that's it.